Kubernetes 1.29, released in mid-2023, introduced several key enhancements across different components to improve performance, security, and user experience. Some of the notable changes include 1. Security and policy enhancements. Pod Security Admission graduates to GA. Kubernetes 1.29 graduates the Pod Security Admission (PSA) feature to general availability (GA). PSA replaces the deprecated PodSecurityPolicy (PSP) to enforce pod security standards across a cluster. Secret subpath projection. This feature provides enhanced security by allowing users to project individual files from Kubernetes secrets into a container's file system, rather than mounting the whole secret, limiting secret exposure. 2. Node and scheduling improvements. Node resource pod annotations. This enhancement allows nodes to annotate pods with the resources they consume, providing better visibility and improving resource scheduling. Graduation of topology-aware hints to beta. This feature helps reduce cross-zone traffic by scheduling pods with awareness of network topologies, improving performance for distributed workloads. Scheduler improvements. New policies have been added to the Kubernetes scheduler to prioritize certain workloads or improve efficiency when scheduling pods across a cluster. 3. Storage features. Storage capacity tracking GA. This feature allows the Kubernetes scheduler to take into account the available capacity of persistent volume storage when placing pods, improving scheduling decisions, and reducing provisioning errors. CSI Volume Health Monitoring graduates to beta. This feature enables more detailed monitoring of CSI, Container Storage Interface, volumes health, providing better insight and management capabilities for storage resources. 4. Networking enhancements. IPv6 dual stack improvements. Kubernetes 1.29 continues to enhance support for dual stack IPv4/IPv6 networking, improving routing, load balancing, and network policy support for environments that use both protocols. 5. Kubelet and container runtime enhancements. Memory COES graduates to beta. Kubernetes 1.29 enhances memory quality of service (COES) settings for workloads, enabling better control over how memory is allocated, reserved, and throttled for containers running on a node. Pod Sandbox API. Changes for CRI. Container Runtime Interface. Enhancements were made to the CRI to improve Pod Sandbox performance and stability. 6. Autoscaling and cluster management. Graduation of HPA v2. The Horizontal Pod Autoscaler, HPA, version 2 is now fully stable, bringing more robust features for scaling workloads based on custom metrics or external metrics, in addition to CPU and memory usage. Server-side apply improvements. Kubernetes server-side apply mechanism now has enhanced capabilities, making declarative object management more robust. 7. CLI and developer experience. Kubectl events. The new Kubectl events command provides a more intuitive way to view Kubernetes events, improving troubleshooting and cluster management experience. Improvements to structured logging. Kubernetes continues to migrate components towards structured logging, which enhances observability and traceability across the cluster by providing more context in logs. 8. Deprecations and removals. PodSecurityPolicy (PSP) removal. Kubernetes 1.29 officially removes the deprecated PodSecurityPolicy (PSP) resource, encouraging the use of Pod Security Admission (PSA) for pod security controls. CRI-O v1.27. Kubernetes is moving away from older versions of CRI-O and other container runtimes, encouraging updates to newer versions for better support and stability. These enhancements in Kubernetes 1.29 focus on making the platform more secure, scalable, and developer-friendly, while improving the underlying infrastructure for large-scale container orchestration. In Kubernetes 1.29, several features were officially removed or deprecated as part of the ongoing process of improving the platform. Here are some key removals in Kubernetes 1.29. 1. PodSecurityPolicy, PSP, removal. PodSecurityPolicy, PSP. This feature has been completely removed in Kubernetes 1.29. PSP was deprecated in Kubernetes 1.21, and its replacement is the Pod Security Admission, PSA framework, which is now fully GA. PSA provides a simpler and more flexible way to enforce pod security standards using predefined or custom policies. 2. In-tree cloud providers removal. Continued. Kubernetes continues the process of removing in-tree cloud provider plugins in favor of out-of-tree cloud controllers. In Kubernetes 1.29, support for several in-tree providers is being phased out as part of the larger effort to transition fully to external cloud provider integrations. Users are encouraged to migrate to Cloud Controller Manager, CCM, and CSI drivers for storage. 3. Container runtime deprecations. Kubernetes is phasing out older container runtimes in favor of modern options like Containered and CRI. Support for Docker shim was already removed in earlier versions, and Kubernetes 1.29 continues to push updates and changes to how the Container Runtime Interface, CRI, operates, reducing reliance on older runtime APIs. 4. Beta.kubernetes.io, labels and taints. Kubernetes has been gradually moving away from the older beta.kubernetes.io labels and taints. In Kubernetes 1.29, these labels are no longer supported, and users are encouraged to migrate to topology.kubernetes.io and node.kubernetes.io equivalents. 5. Deprecated APIs for ingress, network policy, and stateful sets. Several API versions have been fully removed as part of their deprecation cycle. Ingress. The extension /v1 beta 1 API for ingress resources is no longer available. Users should migrate to the networking.k8s.io/v1 API, which provides more features and stability. Stateful sets and network policy. Deprecated versions of these APIs are also removed, requiring users to use stable versions like app/v1 for stateful sets and networking.k8s.io/v1 for network policies. 6. Node-level runtime stats removal. The older runtime stats gathering mechanism for nodes has been removed in favor of more modern and performant methods for gathering node and container runtime statistics. This helps reduce the load on nodes and encourages the use of newer telemetry systems. 7. Removal of Kubernetes alpha features. Alpha features that were not promoted beyond alpha phase have been removed to reduce complexity and maintenance overhead. These include experimental features that did not see significant adoption or stabilization efforts. These removals ensure Kubernetes remains efficient, secure, and compatible with the latest cloud-native developments. The deprecation and removal of outdated features encourage users to adopt more modern alternatives that offer better performance and security.